He works at a small airport in the far north of Sweden, where on any given shift he might clear a runway of snow, guide a Boeing 737 through landing, and then de-ice the same aircraft before driving home, to a property where the ground itself has to be heated to keep it from becoming impassable. His name is Mattias Björnström, and for years he has been quietly documenting every piece of this life on YouTube, in a language most of his 40 million viewers do not speak. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly what it takes to live, work, and build near the Arctic Circle, and why a growing part of the internet cannot look away. Northern Sweden sits at the edge of what most people mentally draw as the edge of the habitable world. The Arctic Circle cuts across that landscape like a geographic threshold, past which winters are not just cold, they are structurally hostile. Temperatures drop to -40 degrees Celsius. The ground freezes to depths that would buckle unprepared infrastructure overnight. Daylight disappears almost entirely for weeks at a time in the depths of winter. This is not the kind of place most people move to. It is the kind of place people stay in, because they were born there, and because leaving never made sense. Mattias Björnström grew up in this environment. He did not grow up in the kind of cold that inconveniences you. He grew up in the kind of cold that has to be engineered around at every stage of daily life, where you cannot park a car without planning for what it will look like at dawn, where the ground beneath your property is a structural problem that has to be solved before winter, not after it begins. His YouTube channel bio strips that background down to a single sentence. My name is Mattias, living in northern Sweden close to the Arctic Circle. Most things I do are based on a feeling. Planning has never been my thing. That is not a casual detail. It is the thesis statement for everything his channel has become. A man in one of the harshest climates in Europe, building and repairing and operating largely on instinct, and choosing to film it in real time for an audience that does not share his language, his weather, or his particular set of daily problems. His videos run close to an hour on average. Most are in Swedish. There are no elaborate sets, no host intros, no scripted walkthroughs, just Mattias, working through a problem until it is solved. That combination should not have worked at the scale it did. And here's the part that changes everything about what you just heard. The channel that grew to over 40 million views did not grow because of viral moments or trend chasing. It grew because of the specific, almost impossible variety of what Mattias actually does for a living, and the fact that he films all of it. His day job is at a small regional airport in northern Sweden. Not as a pilot, not as a mechanic, as something closer to everything. On a single shift, Mattias can move between jobs that most large airports divide across multiple departments and dozens of staff members. He operates snowplows. He runs de-icing operations on aircraft before they taxi to the runway. He manages air traffic control, guiding incoming planes through the procedure that brings them down safely onto an Arctic airfield. Then, when the aircraft are done, he might switch to a maintenance role, repairing ventilation, fixing equipment, handling whatever infrastructure problem the day has produced. Tom Scott, one of the most respected voices in English-language educational content on YouTube, featured one of Mattias's airport videos in his newsletter in June 2024. His description: a meditative, slice-of-life, wonderfully edited video, in which Mattias cycles through every role at a small Swedish airport in a single day. Tower control, plane de-icing, snow blowing, time lapses, drone footage, POV shots. Scott noted the auto-translated subtitles were good enough to follow, but added, if you just wanted the music, skip to 422. That framing tells you something important about what Mattias has built. The work is compelling enough to watch without fully understanding the language. The craft of the documentation is strong enough to carry the experience past the language barrier entirely. The world beyond Sweden began paying attention. What happened next is the reason this story spread across the internet. Away from the airport, Mattias is building an infrastructure for survival at home, and the scale of that project is where his channel finds its second gear. The problem is simple in concept and relentless in practice. When temperatures hit -40 degrees, everything that is not actively managed by engineering becomes a liability. A car left overnight without preparation can require hours to start. A concrete driveway without a subsurface heating system will heave and crack under the freeze-thaw cycle within a single winter. A garage without proper drainage planning floods, refreezes, and becomes structurally dangerous. Mattias does not talk about these problems in the abstract. He solves them on camera. He built a heated concrete driveway apron specifically to keep the entry to his garage ice-free through Arctic winters. He installed a sea heat system, a hose running to a water source to extract thermal energy. He engineered a stormwater infiltration bed beneath his property to manage melt runoff that would otherwise pool and refreeze. When his excavator broke a pin in bushing, he repaired it himself on camera, documenting every stage of the procedure. When a vintage Porsche Junior 108 tractor sat inactive for more than 25 years, he stripped it back, sourced the parts, replaced the piston and cylinder, and filmed the first test run. None of these projects were staged. The problems existed. He solved them. The camera was on. This is the quality that has made the channel hard to categorize. It is not a lifestyle channel. It is not a DIY tutorial series. It is not a survival or wilderness channel. It is closer to a real-time record of what competence looks like under persistent pressure, the daily accumulation of decisions made by someone who does not have the option to ignore the environment he lives in. And if you think that was surprising, stay with me, because this next part is why the whole story matters. The numbers attached to this channel do not follow the usual logic of YouTube growth. By the time analytics trackers began monitoring the channel consistently, Bjoernstroem had accumulated over 40 million total views on a channel where the videos average close to an hour in length, are filmed and narrated in Swedish, and cover topics: excavator pin repair, heated concrete infrastructure, airport de-icing, that exist well outside the mainstream content categories the algorithm typically favors. Nearly 200,000 subscribers have clicked that button for a man they cannot fully understand speaking about problems most of them will never personally face. What that tells you is something about the specific appeal of watching real competence in real conditions. There is a format of YouTube content that has grown significantly over the past several years, sometimes called process content, where the value is not in the instruction or the information, but in the unbroken record of someone doing something difficult well. Long form, unhurried, authentic in the literal sense of the word, produced by the person experiencing the thing being documented. Mattias Björnström did not invent that format, but he may be its purest current practitioner. His own channel bio, "Most things I do are based on a feeling, planning has never been my thing," is not a disclaimer. It is an accurate description of why the content works. The lack of planning is the plan. The absence of a script is the script. What that means for an audience sitting somewhere south of the Arctic Circle, watching subtitles scroll across footage of a Swedish airport runway at dawn, is that the experience feels true. Not produced, not packaged, true. Most people who know this story stop here. But the real story starts right now. What makes Bjoernstroem different from every other rural or outdoor creator on YouTube is not the skill, it is the environment that makes the skill necessary. The Arctic Circle is not a scenic backdrop. It is a participant in every project Mattias puts on camera. When he prepares a car for winter at -40°C, the cold is not a dramatic detail. It is the engineering brief. When he builds heating systems into the floor of his garage, the permafrost conditions beneath northern Sweden are not atmosphere. They are the structural problem he is solving. When he drives to the airport before dawn to plow a runway, the darkness is not cinematic framing. It is just what that time of year looks like from that latitude. This is the thing that most coverage of Mattias Björnström gets wrong. The question is never, how does he survive the cold? That is a tourist's question. Mattias is not surviving the cold. He is operating inside it, the way a mechanic operates inside an engine, not as an outsider managing a threat, but as a resident who understands the system and builds accordingly. The heated driveway apron is a good example. To someone from a temperate climate, that project reads as extreme. A heated concrete floor, installed outdoors to prevent ice formation. But in northern Sweden, near the Arctic Circle, an unheated concrete apron at the entry to a working garage is a problem that will show up every single winter without fail. The question is not whether to solve it, the question is how to solve it with the resources and skills available. Mattias solved it with a subsurface heating system, documented the build across multiple videos, and moved on to the next problem. That forward momentum, problem solved, next problem, is the rhythm that drives the channel. Here's what the comments kept asking, and here's the answer they never got, until now. There is a detail about Mattias Björnström's life that the channel documents extensively but never pauses to contextualize for the international audience watching it. He is doing all of this at the same time. The airport job, the garage builds, the excavator repairs, the tractor restorations, the infrastructure engineering, the filming, the editing. These are not phases of his life separated by years. They are parallel tracks running simultaneously across the same weeks and months. The video title that first drew wider attention in 2024 captures this with unusual directness: frozen truck, buying steel, handling air traffic, and building columns for a future office. That is not a list of topics spread across a series. That is the description of a single period of time. This is the element of his life that a short reaction video or a social media clip cannot convey. The cumulative weight of it only becomes visible across the full archive of the channel. Video after video, project after project, all running concurrently, all filmed with the same unhurried attention to detail. The international traction the channel found in 2024 brought a specific kind of comment to the videos. People from warmer climates expressing something close to disbelief, not at the cold itself, but at the density of competence required to function in it. One person, one set of hands, one property near the Arctic Circle, and an airport to show up to in the morning. The March 2026 external documentary coverage of Mattias, titled Inside Mattias Björnström's Insane Multitasking Life Above the Arctic Circle, put that exact observation in its title. What does it actually take to run heavy machinery, maintain infrastructure, and keep an airport operating above the Arctic Circle, all while filming it for YouTube? The answer, as the channel demonstrates across hundreds of hours of footage, is everything you have, every day. And that's when the decision was made. The one nobody around him saw coming. In 2024, Mattias announced his next large-scale project, an office, built into the existing garage complex he had spent years engineering and upgrading. Not a dramatic departure from what the channel had always covered, but a marker of something changing in how he thought about the operation he had built. The garage had started as a practical workspace. Now it was becoming a compound. Infrastructure layered on top of infrastructure, each new addition informed by the lessons of the last. The office build followed the same pattern as everything else on the channel. No grand announcement, no launch event. A community post noting that there were 2 smaller videos still to come before the big build started. And then the work began, documented in the same unhurried long-form style that had defined the channel from the beginning. His fourth-wall merchandise shop launched around the same period, a practical move for a channel that had outgrown its original niche audience and was now serving a substantially larger international community. The merch is simple. The shop is functional. There is no branding exercise here, no pivot to lifestyle content. Just a creator building the infrastructure around his channel the same way he builds everything else, one step at a time, based on what the situation requires. As of 2026, the subscriber count is approaching 200,000. The total view count has passed 40 million. The videos continue to run close to an hour each. The content continues to be in Swedish, with English subtitles available. The airport job continues. The builds continue. Nothing about Bjoernstroem suggests a pivot is coming. Nothing about his content history suggests he would make one if it were. Most things I do are based on a feeling, he wrote in his channel bio. Planning has never been my thing. For a man building heated floors, repairing aircraft infrastructure, and constructing an office near the top of the world, that sentence turns out to be a kind of philosophy, and the most honest description of what the channel has always been. At this point in the story, most people walked away. What he did instead is the part nobody talks about. The real story of Bjoernstroem is not about survival. It is not even, at its core, about the Arctic. It is about what happens when a person's daily life is hard enough and interesting enough that no additional drama needs to be invented to make it worth watching, and when that person has the skill and patience to put a camera on all of it. There is a long tradition on YouTube of creators manufacturing stakes, building conflict into content, staging the problem before filming the solution. Mattias Björnström has never needed to do any of that. His environment manufactures the stakes for him. An aircraft needs to land on a frozen runway. A truck needs to start at -40 cc. A garage floor needs to stay ice-free through an Arctic winter. These are not challenges he constructed for content. They are his Tuesday. The audience that found his channel across 2024 and 2025, drawn in by Tom Scott's newsletter, by external documentary coverage, by the algorithm beginning to surface long-form content to international viewers, largely came in without expecting to stay, and then stayed. Because the videos ask nothing of you except attention. No merchandise push mid-video, no dramatic thumbnail bait that the video cannot deliver on, no artificial cliffhangers within the edit. Just work, documented honestly, in the place where Mattias Björnström lives. 40 million views later, the rest of the world is starting to understand what his neighbors in northern Sweden have always known, that living close to the Arctic Circle does not make you remarkable. It makes the work you do remarkable. And Mattias Björnström does not stop working. The story of Bjoernstroem is ultimately the story of what happens when the life you already live turns out to be the content. And when you are skilled enough at documenting it that 40 million people from warmer places eventually come looking for it. His current chapter is the office build, the ongoing airport work, and a channel continuing to expand its international footprint without changing a single thing about its format or philosophy. There is no reinvention on the horizon. The next project will be whatever the next problem is, filmed in Swedish at around an hour in length, subtitled for an audience that came for the footage and stayed for the man doing the work. Here is the question worth leaving with. Most people who live in extreme environments eventually leave. They move south. They trade difficulty for convenience. Mattias Björnström has done the opposite. He has invested deeper and deeper into the infrastructure of staying. Do you think that is the right call? Or is there a version of this story where he eventually walks away from the Arctic for good?